Warning: this episode contains spoilers for episode 6 and the entire series of Miss Marvel. Get in, losers, we're getting shawarma.
Welcome, everyone, to our bonus episode of Extra Magic Minutes.
Yes.
And this week we are talking Miss Marvel.
We're talking all about Miss Marvel. Yes, the 6-part series just wrapped up on Disney Plus. Wow. Just wow. Actually, our first Extra Magic Minutes was about the first episode and giving our review of Miss Marvel, and we just thought that it was very appropriate to end our Marvel week with Thor: Love and Thunder just coming out, and now Miss Marvel just ending, to finish up this week with an Extra Magic Minutes and talking all about the series in general and our thoughts about the season finale and where this all leads the MCU into the future.
Yes. We have lots of thoughts, opinions, and I think just overall love for this show.
Yes.
I just can't stop gushing about it. I love everything.
It was one of the shows that we were really excited about coming into it. She's one of our favorite characters. She's one of my favorites books to read in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel in general they really got the character of Kamala down.
Yeah, I agree. She's just I don't know, she's just a kid from Jersey that loves Avengers and superheroes and the comics just as much as us the fans do. So I just love that. It's just so relatable, even though she's a teenager in high school right now. So I know that in general is probably not relatable to everybody, but I don't think that really matters. I think her love for Marvel and the characters and all of that, it just
really shines. And
yeah.
I guess let's kind of specifically start talking about episode 6 in itself, and then we'll kind of go into the broad, just how we felt about the entire series.
Yeah.
I guess, what were your initial thoughts on the season finale?
I loved it. It actually made me cry a couple times.
Yeah.
The first part was when her mom was giving her the suit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I just got really emotional because her mom just kind of goes on her own journey throughout this series. She's very strict and doesn't allow Kamala to
she's very protective of her daughter.
Yeah. And just for her to be I got you, or I made you the suit, I don't know,
and I think just her going to back to her own mom in Karachi and kind of realizing she was Kamala at her age.
Yeah, I think you kind of forget that maybe as you get older, how you were in your younger days.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a message that should resonate no matter your race, gender, religion, anything. Everyone has those growing pains where once you're finally adult, you realize maybe I wasn't as straight laced and as nice as I was as a kid. So I think her mom's journey was really awesome, and I in the back of my mind when she's opening the toffee box and giving Kamala her new suit, I'm just thinking she probably went to that place in Jersey City where all of the shops are that I think it was episode 1 or 2, where the Illuminantes are at, and they're the dress shop and everything. She probably went to the other Illuminantes and said hey, I need to make this for Kamala.
yeah. I just I love that, and I think it just shows her just putting more trust in Kamala, and just I guess knowing Kamala she's a good person, and she can trust her, and and I think that just builds a better relationship overall. So I don't know, I really like that part.
Yeah, and it's nice that obviously her mom knows, but her whole entire family knows, and her inner circle of friends knows about her true identity, which is really nice to see that Bruno and Nakia and Zoe and her brother and sister-in-law and even her dad, they really join together and support her. Maybe not in the ways that Kamala thinks that she needs support, because
Yeah.
I mean, superheroes don't need chaperones, but there was definitely some chaperoning going on in this episode.
A little bit, but
So I really feel like
that.
they really made this, like, it's kind of like this family and like an extended family, a really tight bond. Even like seeing like characters like Zoe come in at the end and like really like bond with Kamala and be like, yes, I'm here for you. Like, what do you want to do? Like, it's really awesome because they get there in the comics, but it takes a little bit. And it just felt really natural in this episode.
Yeah, I love that. I love the team up in the school, and then like Kamala's like going over like her plan on the chalkboard.
On the chalkboard, yeah.
Yeah, like I love that. I thought that was so fun. And then her brother comes in, and it's just a whole big like team up, and I don't know, like
and it felt super grounded. It felt like something like, yes, this is something that a high schooler would have thought of. Like, it doesn't seem like too big or overreaching. It doesn't seem like they're trying to be like too grand about the scheme. Like, no, we're just gonna go like run around a high school and like kind of confuse them and to get Kamran out. Like, yeah, that seems like something like a 16-year-old totally would think of.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I didn't think it was weird or off or anything like that. I thoroughly enjoyed that whole scene.
And a lot of the ideas and what's the group thinks of it reminded me a lot of like the first Spider-Man movie. Like, that was very much grounded in like, yeah, this is definitely something like a teenager, a high schooler would do. Like, this is very much in line with what I think someone of her age would do. So that was really, really nice, just to kind of see that team up. And that was such a fun scene in the school. But it's, I think in the grand scheme of things, where the episode really shined for me is when she's using her powers and kind of confronting Kamran.
Yes. I really like, they really got into her powers, like showing them off, and she
finally
says the word. She says embiggen, and oh my gosh, like we were
cheering when that happened, because that was like the biggest thing that I wanted to happen or see out of this or out of this series in general. Like, I wanted her to say the word. I wanted her to grow big, and I think when I first found out like her powers are going to be a little different than the comics, I'm just like, okay, well, how are they going to incorporate that? But obviously, like right away from episode 1, they show like she can grow her arm out, she can grow her hands very big, like she can still embiggen. But like in my mind, I'm like, where did she come up with that? Like, how did she think of that?
I don't know. Like I don't, because they don't show her like trying to come up with like a phrase for that.
Like, she's not test trialing like phrases or anything.
No, like like her catchphrase or something like that. Like she just says it, and I don't know, like where she or how she knew to say that. Like I don't know, but we just all wanted her to say it.
So that was really awesome. That final fight scene with Kamran, and just the meaning behind it, just being like, there is no normal. This is the new normal. Like, you just have to deal with what you're given and do the best that you can with the circumstances.
Yeah, and I think that ties into the other quote, like, good is not a thing you are, it's a thing you do. Because I think that's another thing that kind of shows throughout the fight scene is like, once Kamran learns that his mother is dead, like it kind of like it changes him, and like when he's like shooting out his powers, like he's like shooting to kill, and you can see Kamala like blocking his powers to not kill people. And
because I mean, she's even blocking his powers from damage control, and she's blocking damage control from hurting him. So like, she's put in a really tough situation where she's got to choose between, both of these people are against me, but they can't be against each other.
So, and I think that, I don't know, that's just, I guess, another theme throughout the whole show is, that good is not a thing you are, it's a thing you do. And like, obviously her actions and how she wants to conduct herself, like, is shown throughout like that fight scene.
Right. And to go along with that, like, good is not a thing you are, it's a thing you do. That really ties into how the community comes together in that scene to help Kamala and to really give her the strength and support that she needs
Yeah.
emerging as this new superhero.
Yeah, I love that. Like, once she has that conversation with Kamran and, you know, trying to tell him, like, you know, he's instilled with these powers, but he can be a good person. Like, you know, you just, you know, you can choose that, and, you know, helps him escape. And then, yeah, and then the community just kind of rallies around her in like this big circle, like trying to protect her. And yeah, that just,
You know, it's nice to see like her parents and like other community members, because
Yeah.
so we had them all come over from her social media, and then
Yeah.
even having like Sheikh Abdullah from the mosque, and even the police turning around, and they're all joined together and banding against damage control.
Yes.
Was such a really awesome thing to see in the series.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Yeah, and then it cuts away to her, like, you know, after that whole big fight scene, like she's back in her room and she's looking in the mirror again in her like brand new like
and she feels comfortable finally.
Yeah, like I just love that, because I know in the first episode they showed her in her Captain Marvel cosplay costume that she made herself, and you know, she's kind of questioning, like, you know, how it looks on her, and, you know, is it too tight? It's not.
There's a lot of self-consciousness going on.
Yeah, and, you know, I think it just puts her in that place where, like, you know, she wants to be true to herself, and the fact that she's like this big fan and wants to like dress up in this costume, but then also wants to be true to like her family and her religion and how to conduct herself in that aspect, and what she wears goes along with that, and it's not really matching up at that time. And then, you know, with her new costume that her mom made her, like, it's perfect. And that really made me tear up, like just her looking at herself and being like just proud of like who she is now. And I really love that part of the episode.
Yeah, and then from that part, she goes out on the roof, and her dad joins her. So it was very nice to see very early on in the episode that her mom came to terms with her being a superhero and, you know, being supportive. Her dad has seemed much more supportive throughout the series.
Yeah.
And I really loved her dad in this series. I thought that he was just a perfect representation of, you know, just being exactly who Kamala needed him to be. But then the scene on the rooftop where he's talking about Kamala's name and what her name represents and means. And then he says, well, I guess, I don't remember the direct language it was. I don't know if it's
in Pakistan, it means something different, but then
is it in Urdu?
Urdu, it means
like wonderful or marvel. And then he's like, and, you know, you've always been our little Miss Marvel. Yeah. And like I heard, like even now, like I'm saying it, I'm just like it was so perfect. It's such a touching way, and just a perfect transition into how she gets that name. Like, and she takes so much of her identity from her mom with the suits, and now she's taking, you know, her identity and like who she's called and what she can be from her dad.
Yeah. I just can't say enough good things about this show. Like, it just touches at my heartstrings like so much, because like it's not just like Kamala finding like her way, but it's like finding her way within like her family and her community. And I feel like that just speaks so strongly to you know, to like her religion and like where she comes from, and like, you know, because I feel like there's a lot rooted in that. And I think like us, like we, you know, we don't fully understand that, so it's nice to see that on the screen to really like get
right.
that,
and know? I guess, and we got a lot of that in the series in general. I guess it's just, you know, our awesome Western American, you know, history lessons that we like. I never knew about the partition.
I didn't either.
This was a brand new introduction to me, and I'm glad that I was introduced to this, because I had no idea that this was happening, and like this was a real life event that they tied into the greater scheme of the MCU. I think kind of dropping back on the series in general, like I really loved Aisha's storyline.
Yes.
And I think just the character in general, I really grew attached to, and just her love, and how much she wanted Sana to make it in the partition, that she would do anything for her daughter.
Yeah.
And then just how it all worked with the bangle, that Kamala wound up being the stars
Yes.
that she saw. I absolutely loved that they kind of, it was a kind of bit of that wonky time travel, which I know you're not a huge fan
A
of,
little bit,
but I think it really worked.
It did. And I didn't have an issue with it. Like, when that scene kind of came up and I could kind of piece together what was going to happen, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just love that. And I didn't have an issue with it, because we all know how I feel about the time travel thing.
Mhm.
But I think it worked really well in this situation, and
Yeah,
it was perfect.
and I really do enjoy the introduction of the Red Daggers. In the comics, it's just one Red Dagger primarily. So I really do enjoy their introduction. I wasn't a huge fan. I guess if I want to turn to what I wasn't a fan of, I wasn't a huge fan of how they kind of erased the inhuman aspect of her heritage from the comics. In the comics, a Terrigen Mist bomb goes off in Jersey City, and she winds up getting the powers of Captain Marvel initially, and then kind of growing into her own powers and realizing she can, like, not so much shapeshift, but she can, grow and shrink and everything. And I was really hoping to get that kind of storyline, and obviously that was something that we realized early on that wasn't going to be the case.
Yeah.
But with the clandestines coming in and kind of like showing her what her background is, and saying like, well, she's a djinn, or she thinks that she's a djinn. I really wasn't a huge fan of that aspect, because I'm really hoping and pulling for an Inhumans aspect to come back into the comics. So not that they almost retconned that, but they kind of amended that a little bit right at the end of episode 6.
Yes, because there's a conversation with Bruno and Kamala right at the end, and Bruno's been doing more research into like her DNA, because her brother Amir was asking like, well, do I have superpowers? So he was doing,
which I would do too if like my sister had superpowers. Right? And be like, hey, where's mine?
I want some too. So then he says that like it's in your DNA. It's almost like a mutation.
And then at that point, I didn't catch it at first, but the X-Men 97 theme song from the illustrated or the animated series kind of interludes in there a little bit.
Yeah.
So really alluding to the fact that Miss Marvel is a mutant.
Yeah, so that we kind of picked up on. But then Kamala says like after that, she's just kind of like, well, it doesn't really matter. It's just another label for people. So I don't know if that's supposed to be like, yeah, Marvel is introducing mutants in it, but like mutants, Inhumans, like
they're all
it's just all the same thing. Like it doesn't really matter what we're gonna call them now, is how I'm looking at it right now. Because I don't know. And like as somebody who doesn't like, read the comics, I certainly don't know like anything about X-Men. Like, so for me, I'm just like, okay, like I know people have been like talking about, mutants and introducing like X-Men into the MCU and all of that. So like I think this is their way of doing it, but it doesn't, I don't know, like they're just kind of like, yeah, it's not a big deal. It's almost what it seems like when Kamala says that comment afterwards. Yeah. I don't know.
I'm still holding out to hear about Inhumans, or I don't know if they're gonna kind of maybe branch off like these mutated, not I don't say mutated, but these mutants. Some people call themselves the X-Men, some people call themselves the Inhuman, and that's just how they kind of go about it. I guess the real reason I want to see her be an Inhuman is I want to see Lockjaw.
Yes.
I want to see Lockjaw in this series. I'd love to see Medusa come back in from the series. Black Bolt is an awesome character that gets underrepresented. I'm sure if Mr. Marvel's Minutes is listening to this, he is definitely thinking the same thing.
Yes.
So I'm really hoping and pushing that we can get some more Inhuman love going forward here, but I'll take a cool introduction to them kind of saying, yes, like we are now going to start tiptoeing into X-Men and mutants.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that Miss Marvel got to be the show that is bringing
It's a huge moment.
It is.
I was reading from on Marvel. They were talking with Iman and I forget the guy who plays Bruno.
Oh yeah.
And they were talking to them about like just being on set that day, and like the entire crew was just cheering and it was so excited because like they knew the significance of that scene. They knew what was happening. Like obviously we got a little bit of a taste with it in Multiverse of Madness, seeing Charles Xavier back, but that wasn't in the main timeline.
I was gonna say, I'm like, that doesn't really count because it was in a different universe and then they all die. So I'm like, I don't know how much that really
right. So like this is them like really showing like, hey, we're going to start going down this mutant alley. We're going to start introducing X-Men. Fingers crossed for Inhumans.
Mostly Lockjaw, but
so and then if the episode wasn't just great as it is as there, we got a very awesome stinger as a post-credit or as a mid-credit scene right at the end there.
Yeah, we see Kamala like falling on the bed, and then she's getting up and like, I don't know, it's just like twisty turvy goes into the closet, and then out pops Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel herself. Yeah. I'm really excited to see what happens here. I've read a bunch of theories of what it could mean or how that happens. I've heard that, you know, it could be Kamala's in like this like negative dimension.
Yeah.
We've heard theories about her bangle being from the same kind of energy and cosmic energy as Shang-Chi's 10 rings.
Yeah.
So it's there's a lot to explore there. Obviously, we did also get to the official announcement that not that it wasn't official before, but that she will be back in the Marvels next year. So I'm very excited to see where this arc goes. I'm very excited to see where Kamala is right now. We don't know where she is.
Because Captain Marvel did not seem very pleased. She's like, oh no. So I'm thinking she was probably on some mission and now she's back on Earth and needs to figure out how to get back to what she was doing. But I am so excited for the Marvels. Like I think that's gonna probably be like one of my like favorite movies. Like I'm so excited. I love Captain Marvel. I love Miss Marvel, and I'm really excited for Monica to team up with them. Like I think that's gonna be amazing.
I think that's next summer, so we've got a little bit of time to waste. But we'll definitely see where that all kind of pans out, and I'm sure we'll get some more information or maybe some hints as to what's happening, in the coming months at Comic-Con or D23.
Yeah, but just little hints. I don't need to know much.
No, not much.
Like I just need like a teaser trailer and I'm good. I will wait till the movie comes out.
So obviously we kind of mentioned that from what we're kind of seeing right now, things are getting a little bit bigger in the MCU.
Yeah.
We're not just kind of staying on Earth or in one separate universe.
It's getting pretty cosmic.
Pretty cosmic. It gets mentioned quite a bit. We got a lot of cosmic travel in Thor: Love and Thunder this week or last week as well. The Miss Marvel, I guess, and Captain Marvel in general just kind of tends to be a more of a cosmic adventure from Carol's story in the comics. So this is definitely leading up to something much bigger. It's just, getting all the pieces in place to start finally telling that bigger story.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited that Marvel has decided to introduce and take Kamala along for the ride.
Me too. Yes.
So I guess just kind of to wrap up today's episode, I just want to go over maybe some final thoughts that we both had about the episode.
Sure.
And I think a really good point that we both found, or we both kind of felt, was the interaction between the Department of Damage Control and how they treated the mosque and
Yes.
Kamala's community.
Yes. Yeah, I got that right away. Like they were so like disrespectful and like kind of racist, like I would say, going in, especially like the first time when they're in there and they're like they're told like, you know, if you come back again, please remove your shoes.
Yes.
Like, okay, that seems like an easy, respectful thing to do. And like the second time that they come back, they're just storming in there. Like, I knew they weren't going to take off their shoes. And I'm like, they're just so like disrespectful. And then they're describing Kamran as like this 16-year-old like Pakistani boy. And
like, then they're like, well, that's like literally
everybody, like, or like, yeah, like half the, you know, half the people here. Like,
I think it was a very good kind of commentation on just kind of how different communities, especially of communities of color, kind of gets broadly drawn as criminals or as, you know, a person of interest when it's, you know, you need to be a little bit more specific when you're dealing with such, you know, an event like, you know, these superpowered individuals.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, the first time they worked, I think it was an episode, I think it was actually this last episode, they're walking out of the Circle Q as it's after it was bombed by the Department of Damage Control.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, this is what happens when the wrong people get powers. And the other officer's like, well, what do you mean by wrong people?
Yeah.
And then like, it was almost like, we knew what you meant, but then she's like, well, children.
Yeah, like she was talking about children. Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of one of those. It was kind of one of those instances where like it was the commentary on what she probably meant and how it came out.
Yeah,
like you just need to be like more careful because like it's not every person of color is a bad person. Not every kid. And I guess in this universe, not every kid with superpowers is a bad individual. Like, you know, like you just need to be more mindful and of the community in general.
Yeah.
And I do think that it was, I'm glad that Marvel did put something or kind of, you know, made commentary and definitely included that narrative into the storyline.
Right. Yeah, because there's also a line in there when Bruno and Kamran are seeking safety in the mosque, and Nakia's like, this is a mosque in America. Like there's no such thing. Like Department of Damage Control's been here twice. Like we probably have like all these other like people like.
And the officer, she was just like, I want every room turned over. You bust down any door that has locks in it. Yeah. They all walk through with their shoes on. Like they didn't care that it was a mosque.
Right.
They only were looking for a person of interest that broadly fit the description of someone who may be in a mosque.
Yeah. And then like you said, I'm really glad that Marvel put this in there because like it goes to show, I think, what people of color in different religions other than like Christianity in America like genuinely have to go through in like everyday life. Like this is, you know,
and we got a lot of that as well in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yep.
So it's nice to get real world. Like I want to see real world issues and how it affects like these comic book characters and these MCU characters, because then it makes them feel much more connected to the world that I live in.
Right.
Like as much fun as watching like Thor: Love and Thunder or, you know, some of these like really grand movies, like it's really nice to see that they can still steep these characters in a world that feels like they could they could actually live in Jersey City. They actually could be like just down the block from me.
Yep.
And I'm really glad that it's included, because it just makes these characters in this world and this grand MCU, which I've fallen in love with and have been, a huge fan and supporter of for, over a decade now. It makes me feel like I'm much more connected to that story.
Yeah. I really appreciate that. And I've read a couple reviews, and that's been a big like criticism of some of these reviews, is that they don't like the way that the Department of Damage Control, or just like authorities in general, were painted in this series. Like, they were painted in a bad light, and that's unfair. And I'm like, well, this is reality. And I think that I applaud Marvel for doing it and for putting it in there. So it's not an issue for me. I liked it. I think it just goes to show, like,
if you were uncomfortable with the way that Damage Control treated the people in the mosque, you need to reevaluate why that didn't upset you.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that. Just you need to reevaluate how things really work in the real world.
Yes.
Not that I want to get this too political or change. Like, I really want to stick with Miss Marvel, but like, obviously, like, there was commentary that like was a main issue main topic in this episode, and we're here to discuss the episode.
Yeah, and it was a theme throughout the whole series. It wasn't just like a one and done kind of thing. So I think it's relevant to talk about. So
I do.
That's what we think about that. So
were there any other final thoughts or final things you wanted to mention about this episode or the series in general?
So I guess my final thoughts on this is, one, it's my favorite. Like, it's absolutely number one for me.
In terms of like the MCU or the Disney Plus shows?
The Disney Plus, like, Marvel shows.
Okay.
Like, it's my favorite. I loved it. Like, it's the only show. Well, I guess we did kind of rewatch WandaVision a little bit. But otherwise, it's the only show that I've actually went back and like rewatched.
And it's the only show for me so far that I've really wanted a second season out of.
Yes.
As much as I loved WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I think between those two and Miss Marvel are going to be in my top 3.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready to like to rank them quite yet, but those would be my top 3 shows. And as much as I really enjoyed and loved the storylines of both of those, like, I don't want a season 2. Like, I would want a season 2 for Miss Marvel more than a second season WandaVision or Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's so much to explore with her character, and I'm really excited to see where it goes in the movie The Marvels, and yeah, hopefully they can expand on it, and we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I don't know. It was the show that I was most excited for, and for me, it didn't disappoint at all. Like, I know we were kind of talking about things that we didn't like about the show, and
it was hard to come up with things that we didn't like.
Like, and I honestly don't have one, and I don't say that like just to be like, no, it was perfect. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, I just, like, for me, I can't come up with something to criticize. Like, I loved it. And I guess my final thoughts, it's something that I saw on social media, just like, scrolling the last few days, like this quote or something, but this show feels like a love letter to the MCU from a girl who's a fan of these characters, like, just as much as we are. And like, oh my gosh, that just like really hit with me. And I love Miss Marvel, and that's quote.
I do too. I can't imagine this series have going any better than what it did. I really enjoyed every single minute of the series. The downside of these Disney Plus series that there's only 6 episodes to most of them, so like, I want more story. I want to see where Kamala goes. I want to see what happens with Bruno Akeltek. I want to see.
Is that my criticism? Like, it's too short. I want more.
I want to see, the friendship between Nakia and Zoe flourish. I want to see more of her parents. Like, her parents were such a hit in this show for me. Gosh. Like, I absolutely loved her parents. So like, I want to see more of that. And I just really, really hope that we do get more, because
I think so.
We love this character so much.
We do. Yes. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about Miss Marvel. Like, she's just, she's amazing, and I feel like she's
She's marvelous.
Yes, for sure.
Well, obviously you guys know what we think about the episode
Yes.
and what we think about the series
Just
and Miss
gushing all
Marvel.
about Miss Marvel.
We definitely want to hear what you have to think or have to say about it.
I know for some people they said that they couldn't really relate, or it was hard to kind of get into, but I don't know, just let us know. What did you think? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Where does it fall like on your list of the Marvel shows so far?
And maybe once we get a couple more shows out, or maybe we can start ranking some of these shows, but I think we know kind of who's going to be up on top, or who's going to be, up at the top of that ranking whenever we finally do that.
It's going to really be a surprise. I just kind of thinking about what's coming out in the next few episodes or few shows that are slated. I'm just like, I don't think they're going to top Miss Marvel for me personally. So.
But yeah, so let us know what you think about it. You can always drop us a comment or a DM on Instagram, is where we do most of our updates there. So make sure to stay up to date by following us on Instagram at Team Unicorn Podcast. We want to thank each and every one of you for listening and for all the love and support. We really appreciate that.
And for the Team Unicorn Podcast, I'm Sammy.
And I'm Tyler.
And it's been extra magical. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Team Unicorn Podcast. You can find us on all major podcast platforms as well as YouTube. Make sure to subscribe, like, and review wherever you are listening, and follow us on Instagram to keep up with all things Team Unicorn. And remember, stay magical.